Belief, noun. An acceptance that a statement is true, or that something exists. Something one accepts as true or real. A firmly held opinion or conviction. A religious conviction. Trust, faith, or confidence in someone or something. Hello and namaste, fellow travelers through the illusion we call life. Welcome to another episode of the Almost Daily Zencast. It is Friday, August 13th, and it is about to be 4:44 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm a little early. Boom! There it is. It is now 4 p.m. on the 13th Friday of August. It's Friday the 13th. Are you getting your free tattoo? I'm not. I'm a big fat loser and have never gotten a free Friday the 13th tattoo on Friday the 13th. And I've missed quite a few since I got my very first piece of ink work ever done to my body. So, anyways, it's one of those missed opportunities I sometimes think about and laugh at. Thank you for tuning in to the show. The track you're listening to as we kick off today's episode is called Unearthing Ancient Rituals of Dance by your favorite imaginary animatronic robotic DJ, DJ Zed, part of the Tribal House asset package. It's a live-to-tape remix. In other words, no post-production editing. Cranked it out nice and tight, just for you. Triggering as fuck. Yes, I wrote that in the intro. You know why? People are caught up in and overly identified with their beliefs. And that, my dear friends, is a big fat toxic no-no. But let's zoom out, let's step back, let's start at the beginning. Belief is tragically, severely, and in a toxic kind of way, just like incredibly misunderstood and or manipulated to be this way. We'll talk about that for a hot second, but let's take a look at the way the assumed understanding, right? If there is such a thing as common sense, which, if you're a serious fan of the show, You know where I stand on that issue because I've talked about that at least 3 times in prior episodes. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, I guess I'll leave you in suspense for a hot second. Let's look back really quick. Conviction, right? As in a religious conviction, right? What's another word for opinion? Conviction. What's another word for conviction? Opinion. In the similar category, underneath the definition, the second definition listed, religious conviction, there's also ideology. That's a word that you, dear audience, if you have been listening to the show, you know that I have a nuanced and not in any way, shape, or form flat and two-dimensional opinion on. But suffice it to say, I'm not really a huge fan of ideology. And as a synonym to belief, you might begin to understand why I have some critical things to say about this. But first, I want to acknowledge that for most people, messing with their beliefs is a big fat red flag, right? Poking at their beliefs, criticizing their beliefs, questioning their beliefs, renouncing their beliefs for them. Something that people don't put up with, that triggers people, that upsets people. Why? Because as I mentioned earlier, people are wrapped up in and overly identified to their beliefs. Which means that when someone speaks to their beliefs and says, incongruent things, says things, oppositional things, statements that make it clear that disagreement is at play, then folks who are clinging to beliefs may get a little defensive. So I want to invoke the most, I want to acknowledge, not invoke, that made my sentence sound all wrong. I want to acknowledge the reasons for which I invoke the request that we abdicate. In other words, set down and let go of our beliefs. Because like common sense, there is this, if I may be so bold as to say, there is quite an irrational belief that is wicked common and somewhat popular, that beliefs somehow have coherent cogency and are ubiquitous and or universally understood. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. Let's take a moment to look at the very first bullet point of what we're talking about with what this word means here and now. And then I want to talk about some of the implications caused by that. And then I want to turn the page backwards and take a quick look at what the word used to mean. Because lo and behold, that, my dear friends, has changed over time. And that change should make any critical thinking person go, But I digress. As we understand it today, the current common assumption about belief is that it is an acceptance of the truthiness, the reality of a statement. It's even more than that. It isn't just an acceptance. Belief is the invested commitment in the acceptance of a statement or a claim or a dogmatic formulation as truth. Dare I even push it as some kind of absolute truth. Belief and faith have always had a relationship, dear friends, but in this postmodern, post-Trumptopian era, here in the glorious 50-state union of Trumptopia, it has become quite clear that belief and faith not only have a relationship, but they've been pushed together, merged, forced to copulate. And I'm not really behind that. I can't get behind that. And there's plenty of reasons why. So let's acknowledge right here, right now, dear friends, that one of the things that is commonly ignored by everyone on all sides of any of the well-established or more obscure engineered wedge issues of infinite treadmill of distraction and debate, the thing most commonly ignored amongst everyone, regardless of camp, regardless of ideological outlook, regardless of dogmatic faith perspective, is the following. This is the following thing is the single most commonly neglected and ignored reality about belief. As we use it today, belief has nothing to do with actual truth. But everyone is self-righteously consumed with the confidence that whatever they believe in is absolutely true. In other words, what is ignored is the factual, functional reality that a given person can choose to, either consciously or absentmindedly, because of thoughtfulness or lack of thoughtfulness, because willy-nilly or because they were pushed into it, manipulated into it, any given person can attribute their power of belief to any given thing, whether it's an object or an idea or an ideological construct or a set of dogmatic beliefs or a bundle of political talking points. And they can do this completely without regard, without even bothering to check if said object or objects are actually true. And this is a nuanced distinction to its pre-modern classical definition. And I'm being vague and very roughly, ballpark about this. But let's just say, perhaps academics may disagree with me, but I will gladly update and refine my statement according to verifiable academic facts. But let's just say, for argument's sake, that from the Renaissance era to roughly what I consider the beginning of the postmodern era, which is the climax, the post-climatic denouement that is everything after World War II, right? So in that era, if we can just sort of arbitrarily create a time framework there, belief was understood using the same definition to be a sort of critical reasoning conclusion that I've come to the acceptance through a little bit of reasoning and a little bit of testimony and a little bit of a mix of those kinds of things, testimony from others, reasoning on my own part. I've come to the acceptance that there is truth inherent in some statement or object or claim, etc. That is not how we use it today, dear friends. In the postmodern era, since the end of World War II, the term belief has ever so gently been corrupted, hijacked, and mutated, and yet the definition has remained technically the same, because I don't think that the statement to accept the statement that a statement is true, that this definition has been altered too overtly, but the way in which it is used has been radically changed. Most egregiously in the last 6 years. Today, and in our current milieu, our current postmodern gestalt, belief is an absolutist paradigm. People use belief as the litmus test for drawing a line in the sand and declaring others the opposition. Instead of being the result of a process of reasoning, it is an allegiance that must be given or you are not welcome. This, my dear friends, in my humble opinion, is effing toxic as all fuck, if you were to ask me. And we shall resume our discussion of this theme in just a moment after a bit of a mental, recreational period in which I will present to you a bit of music, or muzak, as some timelines prefer. This upcoming track is a fusion trap groove pad, live to tape, audio, asset, experimental something for you to enjoy, and it is entitled by my dear friend and sidekick DJ Zed, Tight Grooves Satisfying Nightly. Can you believe that this track was made by a robot from another timeline? Other questions along the same line. What do you believe in? One of the most fascinating questions that the human species appears to be fixated with, like really, truly addicted to the question and to the judgment of others based on the response to that question. What if someone told you they believed in nothing? You would be incredulous, would you not? What if someone told you that belief is irrelevant? You would doubt that person and their entire worldview, would you not? That's how much we have all been conditioned to believe in belief. We've been conditioned to believe in the act of believing without any real education to truly understand understand belief, to truly deeply comprehend how belief works. Belief lives in a curiously quixotic, paradoxical catch-22 in its postmodern use. It's absolutist and yet absent-mindedly dismissed at the same time, right? It's considered a critical litmus test and also simultaneously when the content that is believed in is not what is required, then it's nonsense, frou-frou, yoo-hoo, woo-hoo, nonsense, blah, blah, blah. A kind of self-oriented, self-elitist orientation has been incorporated into our functional understanding and use of belief, independent of whatever the dictionary says. And we've been cut off from the roots, folks. We've been cut off from the origin. If you ever really truly want to understand a word and how to use it, don't stop with the dictionary explanation. Dig deeper. Always dig deeper. Because words evolve, sometimes in healthy ways, sometimes in fucked up toxic ways. And there's examples of this throughout human culture. Really quick one I've brought up before on the show. If you haven't heard it, go check out the 3-part episode on logos. Because I talk about logos, what it used to mean, what it got changed to, and why it's important we return to a deep understanding of its original meaning. I mean, I would explain it to y'all here, but that may take too long, and it would ruin this episode, and you wouldn't go check out the other episodes. So go check out the other episodes. Logos, parts 1, 2, and 3. But let's get back here onto the word belief. Belief as a word, as a tool, as a concept, has migrated or evolved organically because language, no matter how conservative any culture may get at any given time, language is common use by default, by the way it functions. One of the things that we don't think about very much when it comes to ideas is that there is the shape or form of the idea, i.e. the definition, and then there is the function of an idea, i.e. how that idea actually engages people's minds and how people use that idea. These are separate issues, dear friends, right? And that's one of my concerns with the direction that belief has been corralled into. Nowadays, especially in this post-Trumptopian political era, belief is rigid. It must be absolute. It must be combined with unwavering loyalty and a certain kind of intellectual blindness. And it's really horrendously cut off from its root origins. So let's take a look at that. People might be familiar with some of the relationship with between the words in English belief and in Latin credo, or I believe, as it is translated, because it is indeed the first turn of phrase in the Apostles' Creed, right? But lo and behold, if you poke around and look into this origin, credere, which is the first person singular, present indicative of credo, which translates into English simply as to believe, comes from the compound kerd, K-E-R-D, dehe, D-H-E, and it literally once meant the following: to put into one's heart. As in, quite similarly, the ancient Sanskrit. Sraddha. S with a what's that little dashy thing above for emphasis? I forget what that's called. So S with a thingy, R-A-D dash D-H-A with a flat line. That's also an emphasis thing. I'm not a linguist, but I studied a little bit of linguicism back in the day. In Sanskrit, that meant faithful, confident devotion. And its origins are related to the root word kerd, which of course means heart. You don't even have to go that far back. Oldie English, which is the correct way to say it, I believe, and Oldie High German and Proto-German, all of those sources, some of which are pronounced funny, like Lufu and Lubu, and where's the old Dutch? Lob, and the old Saxon, Leof, and the old Dutch, Leif, and the German, Leib. To care, to love. Not to blindly accept as true without questioning. Is that too nuanced of a distinction to be making in 2021? I don't know. I beg you to take a moment to consider what an exponentially widening gap that really represents. To put something into one's heart, right, is remarkably different than to blindly agree to something supposedly being a fact without questioning it. And that's how belief is being used on us today. For example, I have been asked more in the last 5 years, than ever before in my active political life as an observer and commentator in politics, whether or not, in a challenging way, mind you, I have been asked in a challenging way, as if my answer, if unacceptable to the questioner, would cause them anger and reason to rebuke me. I have been asked in that fashion whether or not I, quote, believe in the Constitution, end quote. Now, curiously, to many people this makes perfect sense. But to me and to my mind, as crazy and as weird as it may sound to others, my initial, immediate, intuitive response to that statement is, oh, is the Constitution a credo that requires me to believe in it? I thought it was just a document that supervised the legal machinations of this country. Asking that question and getting counterintuitively non-compliant with its subtly implied request that the answer be yes can be very triggering to people who are emotionally attached to patriotism. It can be really triggering to people who are convinced that one must believe in the legal structures of the country that they are proud of living in. I don't see that as a requirement. I think I need to be aware of the laws. I think I need to be in compliance with the laws if I want to avoid the retribution that could be brought against me for violating the laws. And I think that as a participant in the community, I have a responsibility to critically analyze and determine if I agree with, support, and or disagree with and oppose the laws. Nowhere And I mean this sincerely, nowhere in my lifetime's worth of exploration of all things cultural and academic regarding the law, and I do not pretend to be an expert. I am not a lawyer. I am not pretending to be a lawyer. I'm not pretending to be an expert on the law. But I have always been very curious about the way in which people think about the law, about the way in which people interact with the law, about the way in which people respond to and speak about, in particular, in this case, the Constitution. To the best of my intellectual understanding, the Constitution neither asks for nor should it require one's belief. Compliance, perhaps, yes. Belief, I just don't see it as relevant, right? To me, asking if I believe in the Constitution is like asking if I believe in the sun. I don't see the cause. I don't see the need. The sun is there. It clearly exists and is doing what the sun does. I could strive to understand the sun. I can attempt to analyze the sun. I can attempt to discredit the sun. I can attempt to confirm that the sun is doing what I think it's doing. All kinds of avenues of exploration are available there. But I do not think it is necessary, nor even particularly productive, to believe in the sun. Especially not in the way we use the word today. Because we no longer use it to mean to accept something deeply into one's heart. We now use it to extract blind faith out of people. It is used, and this will trigger people because there are folks out there fighting who believe themselves to be fighting against the very thing I'm about to say, which is fascinating. But belief is used to coerce compliance out of people. If you believe in the project, you will comply with its requests, right? But there's no discussion about whether or not you intellectually agree with the project, whatever the project is. Insert here your favorite political agenda. We are asked to give our belief to politicians in a blind, absolutist, monolithic, totalitarian way. Or get the fuck out of the club. Am I wrong? Am I making that up? Am I exaggerating? Am I lying to you? I don't think so. Ask any Trump supporter. Ask them if they believe in Trump. And they will profusely, they'll just spew at the mouth about why Donald Trump is worthy of their belief. And anyone with a clear mind that is not engaged in that transactional manipulation, because that's totally what it is. It's a transactional manipulation. They're giving their belief to Trump because they have been coerced through a transactional use of the term belief. Believe in Trump and he will fight for you. He's not fighting for anybody besides his own wealth, but that's a whole other issue, right? Curiously, when we talk about belief, we are encouraged as a species, as a community of communities, as a politicized body of people, we are encouraged to believe that belief must be involved in politics. Quite frankly, that's one of the most ridiculous, self-undermining, toxic, nonsensical ideas I have ever contemplated. Politics should have absolutely zero to do with belief. It should have absolutely everything to do with critical analysis of the facts. It should have everything to do with functional analysis of our problems and potential solutions, measuring them, the solutions, according to effectiveness, not whether or not people have chosen to believe in it. This is something they use against us all the time. How many people do you know who believe that problem X will never be solved because of things they believe in? I literally had a conversation in the last 2 weeks with someone, not ousting them. It's not about them. It's about the ideas, right? But I had a conversation with someone and they expressed, I won't get into the contextual reasons that we got to this moment, but they expressed quite bluntly the following sentiment in very similar terminology. Not quite exactly this sentence I'm about to say, but close enough. They said something to the effect of, white supremacy is too big to fail. I do not believe anyone that it will ever be conquered. It'll never be overcome. My question to them was, why do you choose to believe that? They said, I'm a pragmatist, something to that effect. I'm a realist. Are they really, though? I humbly suggest to you that, dear listener, that a real realist doesn't fuck around with monolithic belief structures. A real realist is about the evidence that's actually available. Right? At least, in my mind, that's how it could be. Maybe I'm crazy for thinking that it ought to be that way, but I think it ought to be that way. If you're going to call yourself a realist, you shouldn't be swinging big, giant, monolithic, penis-shaped baseball bats of absolutist belief. Because that's very unrealistic of you, in my humble opinion. So, I digress. Belief gets used against us, right? They coerce us to have aspirational beliefs, which is very misleading if you're not putting any effort. It's great to see here's one of the catch-22 problems. And trust me, I have wrestled with this issue for my entire thinking life. There are some really lovey-dovey, butterfly, gooey, good feelings that happen uncontrollably, inexplicably, organically when you believe. That's why people get caught up in belief structures. Here's the problem. That emotionality is irrational. It is truly irrational. But people love to believe irrationally that they are only capable of believing in rational things. But that's not true, is it? People believe in irrational things all the time. So they might be very small in scale, but nonetheless irrational. One of the most important critical example is that, like, if you go, and I'm talking in broad generalist terms, there's obviously examples of the contrary. There's always, the opposite of the rule. But if you were to go and survey 2,000 members of any given political ideology, I'm not trying to call any one political ideology out, right? But let's run with Democrats for right now. No offense to all my Democrat friends out there. If you've always assumed that I'm a Democrat because I'm relaxed and groovy and generally agree with you, sorry to say, you're wrong. But the following, I'm not trying to own the libtards, okay? Fuck that noise. Anybody out there trying to own the opposition is hook, line, and sinker being led by the nose. And is not applying critical thinking, in my humble opinion. But I digress. Never mind which ideology. Let's just make up an ideology. Let's pretend there's a fourth-tier political party called oh God, the Baba Ganoush party. That's terrible because that's a non-American cultural reference. The America should be America party, whatever that nonsense means. There, that's a great example. Let's pretend there is a fourth party out there called the America is America party. And its name makes no logical sense. Okay? If you were to take a survey of 2,000 members of that, you would find a bell curve in the middle of which the plurality of members, by hook or by crook, for whatever reason, for better or worse, irrationally believe that their own political ideological party is relatively free, or at least more free than everyone else's party, of corruption. They cling to the irrational belief that their own organization cannot be hijacked. They very adamantly believe that their own ideological, dogmatic talking points must be the absolute truth, and that everyone else is mistaken. Now, the problem is, the Democrats believe the same, the Republicans believe the same, the Libertarians believe the same, the Trumptopians believe the same. It doesn't matter which political, ideological camp you go to. Deep down, members of each camp irrationally choose to believe that their camp is the righteous one, that their camp is the least corrupt, that their camp is the least likely to be under the influence of nefarious manipulation. This is a ubiquitous belief. I have been lectured about it by dozens of people from every imaginable camp out there. Okay, so I'm not just pulling this statement out of my rear end. This has been said to me in all caps. This political party, blah, 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 and all the rest are more corrupt, more evil, more fucked up, more wrong, more on the wrong side of history. You know what the most common meme I see getting posted right now is? I've already talked about it on some recording. I don't know if I posted that recording yet. So forgive me if this is redundant now or a little bit later in the future. But the most common meme I see making the trending rounds right now is the one that says, imagine an entire half of a nation on the wrong side of history. And it's being posted by people from every conceivable ideological camp. Every ideological camp out there cannot simultaneously and somehow magically exclusively be the only one that is righteous, the only one that is true, the only one that is on the right side of history. You want to believe that one of them must be, right? Because it makes some kind of grotesque common sense, put a pin in that some group must be right. Some group must be righteous. Some group in the good way, right? Like there's a healthy righteous and an unhealthy righteous. There's like a divine righteousness and a toxic evil righteousness. But put a pin in that. That's a whole nother episode. I got to wrap things up. I was going to try to knock it off by 44 and I'm at 43, 47. That tug of war can't persistently be going on, right? Without some inherent logical fallacies happening in the minds of everyone that is blindly convinced that only their camp is worthy of belief. Why does this happen? Because we have abused the word belief. And quite honestly, that is nowhere near from over yet, folks. That's the biggest problem we face today, is that people are increasingly convinced that it is their free will right to believe in the most absurd things, regardless of their veracity and relationship with the truth. And everybody's accusing each other of believing in things that are not true, while simultaneously refusing to have a real serious analysis of their own ideological concepts that they are giving their belief to. When was the last time you witnessed a Republican truly and deeply questioning out loud the things that the Republican Party believe in? I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it at all. When was the last time you saw someone from the Democratic Party? There, I will grant you, I've seen that. Now, I'm not making monolithic statements of absolutism, right? Of course Republicans question their belief. We just don't see it very often. You know what we see? We see this propaganda of belief. Put your belief in Mitch McConnell. Put your belief in Donald Trump. Put your belief in the Republican Party. Believe in the malarkey that we feed you and disbelieve everyone else's malarkey. And that is not how reality works, dear friends. As the charming and delightful scientist whose name literally just ran out of my head. What is his name? The guy who says that. He's really kind of into it now. Not Bill Nye, the science guy. The other dude. Anyways, he's not the only one who says it, right? You've seen this before. The truth will remain true regardless of whether or not you believe in it. Right? But here's the thing. That statement, which seems to make sense, is used against us under the guise of being ubiquitous, universal, common sense, and I say that with really satirical bunny ear gestures all around that phrase. We are misled into giving our belief into things that really, truly do not deserve it. Right? So that's one level of the way it gets misused. And maybe I'll need to come back and do a level part two of this episode to talk about the other way in which I see a belief being used against us. But I'm going to think about that for a hot second and wind down this show. But as always, friends, I'm going to play you another bit of music because that's what we do here. DJ Zed's A Brand New Night, a Velvet Lounge groove pad audio track production for your entertainment, folks. Belief is a mysterious thing, and I'm not arguing against it. I'm not that kind of absolutist, right? But I do humbly encourage you and anyone out there listening to question your beliefs, especially those fed to you by a politically ideological construct. If you believe in things because your party tells you to, question the shit out of those, right? Because the function of belief is something we haven't even started to talk about, and I'm definitely going to come back for a part two. I was thinking about it now during that first bit of musical break, but I'll tease you with this. Belief is used as a distraction. Never mind that they get us to fight each other over our beliefs. They feed us things to believe in that we should not be fucking around with believing in. Why? Because they are incredibly effective distractions from reality as it actually is. And with that, friends, I will sign off from this part one of the Belief episode. May peace be with you. May love and grooviness blossom in your heart, and may a sincere and deep and genuine questioning of your beliefs run through your mind, because that, if anything else, is what's going to help humanity in the immediate future. Because right now, humanity is tearing itself apart over ideological garbage that people are blind faith attached to and invested in because of the incorrect way in which we use belief. So let's believe in things a little less blindly and approach reality as it actually is, with our eyes a little more open. Stay tuned for more, folks.